Hi, this is Matt Donegan at Business Spotlight. I'm here with Matt. Matt, tell me about you. Tell me about your business, please.
So I'm the managing director of Survey Tech. We are a survey equipment provider. So broadly, we do any sort of technology that can be used for surveying, hence the name. Um, that covers everything from drones to ground penetrating radar to allow you to see into concrete, to uh, GS, so satellite positioning, laser scanners, yeah, lots of lots of toys, I guess, and obviously the software to make those machines useful.
Okay, so you say lots of toys. What are the toys for? What's who's using your toys? What industries? What sectors are benefiting from what you do?
So broadly, it's sort of construction, civil engineering, and anyone that has buildings. Really, we've sort of moved into. Um, uh, the business initially was almost more of a logistics exercise, bringing out total stations and lay levels and things to groundwork and civils companies, and we've since sort of expanded our product line into what's known as reality capture. So um, laser scanning of the built world and also machine controls combining heavy machinery with surveying equipment. So effectively having a total position on our excavator, and so you know exactly where and how deep to dig. So we've sort of broadened out, but essentially it would be construction, the mainstay.
So construction and the benefits of the construction industry from a layman's perspective, they look quite considerable. From a case study perspective, or from the feedback that you've had from your customers, what kind of savings, what benefits is your product bringing the marketplace?
Um, it will obviously vary depending on the product because some of the applications are completely different. But if we take, for example, our non-destructive testing brand, which is called Screening Eagle, they've got a range of products that allow you to understand essentially what lies beneath. So ground penetrating radar, um, eddy current, and ultrasound. Now, um, before the advent of these products, and in fact, the democratization of these technologies by actually making software that normal people can understand and it not being a sort of preserve of the universities. Um, Before that, the only way to understand whether your rebar was in the right place was by getting a massive drill and drilling into it. Now, as I think everyone's understood quite clearly from the rack scandal lately, um, it, the you shouldn't really be disturbing some of these structures. And if you're using a destructive testing, because actually some of the rack plates, as long as they uh, are are properly reinforced and not degraded, can actually stay in place and be used. But if you go in there drilling, and you go rebar, you're quite likely to have destroyed the structural integrity of the plate. So there's so many things like that where if you can verify things without having to break out the concrete, the
Yeah.
savings are enormous. And so that's just one of our product lines, really. Depending on which one we talk about, um,
Okay.
there essentially is now a sort of a digital solution that will stop having to do a lot of expensive extra work.
Okay. Good. So, Matt, tell me a bit more about the products because they sound really innovative. The technology, I thought it would be obvious that it was going to be used in the industry more. What are the benefits to the actual construction industry?
Essentially, saving you time, saving you money, saving you having to go on and do a load of work that um, you don't need to do. So, for example, with non-destructive testing, you can understand the reinforcements in the slab without having to drill into it and break it out. Um, if you use a drone, you can understand the topography of a building site and do a cut and fill analysis. So you can work out exactly how many lorries of muck need to come out. You know,
Right.
if you can actually get these accurately, that information is power, and that
So,
we have these technologies now. Sorry.
so do you think by using the technology that you have, because it seems, I mean, the construction industry is wonderful in many different respects, but adoption of technology isn't one of its strengths. I think that's fair to say. In some companies, do you think the products that you're providing, the service that you provide with your technology, is going to provide your clients with a competitive advantage because they're minimizing costs, they're reducing costs, they're reducing the impact on site? Are they the benefits of what we're talking about here for your clients?
Yeah. I mean, we've already seen it. Some of our clients are actually very forward thinking in how they adopt technology, and they're not necessarily the bigger ones.
Mm.
um, we've got one smaller groundworks company who from the outset has seen that our machine control meant that they didn't have to spend as much money on having an engineer on site, and didn't have to spend as much money on having ground workers next to their excavator. So machine control essentially is like sat nav for your excavator. It tells you where and how to dig. Um, and those two savings of a ground worker and a surveyor, your ROI is back within 6 weeks. And they bought the first one, and then within months they bought a second one, and they were getting more work because of it,
Yeah.
because they were able to just do the work more efficiently. Um,
So,
so yeah, I agree. There's not always great adoption of new tech in construction, but you can really see the ones that do have a competitive advantage for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. And it strikes me, excuse me for saying, but it strikes me as obvious that people should be doing this. I mean, it's the one scenario that you paint is kind of hit and hope and let's guess what's there, and the other scenario is let's know what's there from the beginning so we can do it properly. I mean, is that a simplistic view?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes there's just resistance to getting a new way of working because people are used to doing things in one fashion. Um, but but yeah, the benefits are absolutely enormous. It'll change from tech to tech, um, uh, and there's broader adoption of things like robotic total stations and GNSS receivers within engineering departments of construction companies.
Yeah.
That battle's definitely been won. You don't see as many people with string line and floodlights knocking around anymore. But I think it, the thing that we really advocate for is just a total workflow, so that you from start to finish done digitally. All the plans are created by the architects based on laser scans from the outset, and because there's that through line, especially if you document the build as it goes, it's the sort of the golden thread that was heavily talked about, particularly in the Grenfell inquiry, of what was built when and to what specifications. And I think at some point the penny's going to drop in terms of legislation, that if things aren't documented, then people are going to be liable.
Yeah. I can also see benefits right across the board, even for smaller companies. When you saying about the drone technology, and even thinking about sort of medium-sized roofing contractors, and when they come to use drones to assess fairly significant roof spans, etc., your technology could look into that as well, couldn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, we've got a local pest control company that uses products called Beaver Pest Control in Mitcham, and they use our drones for roof surveys to find where the pigeons are. They use our pipe cameras to find rodents, and they adopted our technology, and I keep seeing them winning awards on LinkedIn, so it must work, And the reality is that a lot of our equipment, obviously we started out in construction, but we suddenly realized, oh, actually pest control companies can use this, and facilities management can use this. And over the past couple of years, that's been the sort of the thing that we've really found out, is like, wow, there's a whole world of clients out there.
Yeah.
And as long as you understand and have the right product list, then it's people find you.
Okay, so that took. Look, I'm really starting to understand what the technology is doing, and what you just opened my eyes to is the really broad range. When you were talking about the product, I kind of had it in my mind that it was for large scale use, and obviously, clearly, it can be. But what you're saying is the use cases are right across the spectrum. So, are you finding that you are entering the market more at the high end, or more at the sort of the mass scale of contractors and construction industry?
It's kind of been all of the above, really. When we were just doing sort of your standard construction equipment, it was small and mid-size to slightly larger construction civils companies, and then once we expanded and broadened our range, it's been opening that everyone from estate agents through to virtual reality filmmakers, through to pigeon catchers have found a relevant use for our equipment, and that's just the nature of having. I'm always going to these sort of conferences and things, and I've created a sort of bespoke range of different products that I feel really add something. And I think we talked about technology adoption, but the big problem in the UK, right, over the last decade has been a lack of productivity increase, and they keep pretending that it's going to get better, but it's not. And it's not unless we can bring out a wider usage of technologies that save time and allow you to work more efficiently, because that's how you get productivity, not just by pretending it's going to happen. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Democratizing through finding these tech, because the manufacturers aren't always as good as they could be about explaining what stuff does, and that's where, as Survey Tech, we try and we create lots of videos, explain how things do, how things work. We do webinars, we write articles, and it's all to try and bridge the gap between the manufacturers, who are often just fantastically clever people creating amazing products, and the end user who might not be the person that they intended to build the product for. You know, a case in point is our ground penetrating radar. So Screening Eagle made this. It's most of the people using it are civil engineers trying to find rebar for structural analysis. But the Bank of England, their facilities department, came to me and said, we've got these pipes buried in our Grade 2 listed building, and we keep drilling into them, and every time we have to shut off the whole heating system. The whole area gets shut down. It's, you know, it costs us thousands every time. Do you have anything that would find them? And so I used the ground penetrating radar, and which, you know, back in the day was so difficult to use, but because Screening Eagle come out with this amazing interface, which you use with an iPad, we're able to just trace where the pipes are, and then they've even got a facet in the app where you put a little thing in the corner and you use augmented reality to project where the things you've found are onto the real image. You can trace it. Anyway, yeah. So the Bank of England now use that tech to stop them drilling through pipes, and I'm not sure that anyone was particularly. I think sometimes these products might be created with specialist surveyors in mind, but as long as you communicate and train the people using them, they can be used by anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Often, when products enter the marketplace, the original use that people consider for them isn't what ends up as being the mass adoption. It's quite, you know, I guess that happens a lot in certain industries. Technology is one, farmers another, bizarrely. Kind of partners in crime in that respect of kind of accidental case use. So good understanding about the product. I understand a degree about your marketplace, although I can see it's definitely going to expand. In terms of what you've been doing inside the business, is the growth of the business what you thought it would be? Because the construction industry as a whole is having a fairly challenging time at the moment. So how are you guys doing inside of that?
Yeah, I mean, we managed to grow last year, despite some pretty heavy headwinds. I would say, you know, the fact is that 1 in 5 foreclosures were construction cases. It led the table in the UK of companies going under, and we did come up against it. You know, there were deals where we were on the cusp of getting some tech stuff over the line with the subcontractor, and then a main contractor went bust on on one of their jobs, and suddenly there was no money. You know, it was quite a frustrating year, just in terms of what we potentially could have done and what we managed. But I think as long as you kind of manage your finances sensibly and make sure you're investing in, you know, finding new clients and not being over reliant on what you might have done in the past, then that has tended to be sort of the direction I've taken it.
Okay.
And because we broadened out of the construction industry, that's been helpful.
Yeah. Okay. That's really useful to hear that. I mean, yeah, as you just identified, that 1 in 5 figure is kind of scary. And construction industry has, you know, there are some that are doing really well, but it isn't always the case. And that, you know, challenging times, and we'll see what's happening around the corner. So, if you got one major lesson that you've had since you started the business, is there one element in particular, one lesson, one learning that resonates with you that you'd like to share?
I think it's that you've got to give people a reason to find you, you know, and that isn't necessarily that, and it's probably not price, to be honest. Um, the you if your whole thing is just doing something slightly cheaper than the other person, um, that's not particularly sustainable. Um, and you know, we still do a lot of equipment hire, but there's always going to be someone a bit bigger who will drop their prices more than you.
Yeah.
And actually, by being more innovation focused,
Yeah.
we have allowed to sort of show our clients that whilst we're still very competitive on price, that's extremely important. But we're offering them a future where they're not going to get overtaken by their competitors. We're showing them how new technologies can give them the competitive edge. And I think the people who are just flogging kit for as cheap as possible are never going to provide that in the long run. And
Price is
so I think,
never a competitive advantage unless you're a mass retailer or you're
yeah,
shifting mass units. Price is never going to be. So you're absolutely right. I completely agree. And actually, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important that every business owner hears that. Unless you're dealing with the likes of Amazon, price is never going to be your advantage. So thanks for that. Well, so I often ask people what they would tell their 18-year-old self, but I'm going to ask a slightly different question. When you started the business, was it where you are now? Was it what you envisaged it would be?
so I didn't start the business. My father did.
Ah, right.
Um,
Well,
yeah, so I did and I didn't. Um, I'll tell you the history of it. My dad was a surveyor and then became director of a construction company, and he had a little sideline where he was renting out equipment to the company that he worked for. Very small scale affair. It was real lasers to living room.
right.
So um, he had that running, and the company was actually founded in 1997.
Right.
So yeah, I would have been 11. So not really up much use. Although I kind of learned surveying by carrying the prism for my old man. So um, anyway, when I graduated from university, I was just helping him out with bits and pieces, and really the two of us made the decision to try and broaden the client base and make it into what I would deem a company. Um, and the thing is, we only had one client. They were a great client, don't get me wrong, but it's not sustainable. Um, and so broadly, I had absolutely no idea what we what we were doing. I don't think either of us did, or whether it was going to last. But you know, it's still here. We've got our old printers workshop in Mitcham. We've got a big hire fleet, and we've now got hundreds of customers, and probably even more. And I think the evolution of the business has also made it more interesting because just passing out equipment for hire, whilst you know you've got to look after your bread and butter, um, it didn't quite hold the same interest for me. Whereas the whole sort of laser scanning, machine learning, automation, the things that that our newer lines do, that that's what I find interesting, and what I think is going to set the pace for the next decade. The sort of digitally connected construction site.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because with what's happening with AI, we're seeing enormous amount of changes in many different industries. In some respects, industries that I personally didn't think would be impacted so much at the beginning are being impacted quite quickly as technology's found a way through. I can see how there's in an industry that's slow to adoption, like the construction industry in general, I'm not saying everybody, but in general, the competitive advantage of using tools that you provide with and integrating AI is going to take off a whole different level of productivity. And I think that's
Yeah.
a really interesting space, actually, in an industry that's kind of known to be slow to adopt. Having a technology focus in that is, you're right, it's going to be the thing that's going to provide, it's going to accelerate efficiency in the industry, and it's those guys that are going to survive. It's those guys that are going to thrive, actually, because we still need to build buildings. We still need homes. The construction industry, some of it, a lot of it hasn't slowed down. It's just the cost competitiveness has become a bit crazy.
Yeah.
So it's a race to the bottom, and that's never the way. That's never ever a good way. So look, thank you so much for your time today. I'd love to have another conversation with you. I'd love to have a deeper conversation with you about the technology and about more of the products that you do. So look, let's keep in contact.
Yeah, it'd be great to do a deep dive on. We've barely mentioned it, but Matterport, which tends to be our biggest seller. You mentioned AI, so you now scan a space within minutes. Every dimension captured to 20 mil accuracy. Using AI, it spits out a floor plan for you automatically, along with a report of all the room sizes and dimensions and ceiling height. And they're also bringing out a tool where you can declutter the space. So you just remove all the furniture. So you can understand how something could be reconfigured. And for sort of visualization and revision projects, I mean, this is every time they bring out a new update, I'm just thinking, wow, this is the art of the possible happening now. And that's what's exciting, and that's why it's great. And we've become, I think one of the top resellers of Matterport in the UK, because we're and me and my team are genuinely enthused and passionate about it, because it just once you digitize the built world, there's so many possibilities. Not least the fact that you don't have to walk down and see it. So because you've got this digital twin.
Yeah. So that's the expression that I've heard you use before, digital twin. I thought that's a really fascinating concept, and the fact that you can remove clutter, the fact that it's so tight as well, 20 mil. I mean, that's revolutionary, isn't it? I mean, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's, we'll have to do an entire session on that, but
you're right. I think you're right. I know what's going to go in the highlight reel, though.
One of my webinars.
Okay.
In fact, we made a video all about Matterport, where I went and scanned my local brewery. It's always good to do a demo, something like
that. Breweries are always good for demos.
Yes, exactly.
Next time you're doing that, I'll come with you just to hold something.
Just to make sure. Yeah.
Listen, Matt, thank you so much for your time today. We will book in another interview just to talk about Matterport, I think, because that sounds absolutely fascinating. But as I mentioned just now, I think I know what's going to go in the highlights reel, and it might just be about that quick view into Matterport and how AI is going to infiltrate that one industry, which actually was one of the industries that is deemed to be protected from AI. So that's really interesting, because there's some really big players in the construction industry who thinks it will be the last industry to be affected by AI. You've just actually given me a a complete reverse view. That's amazing. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and they're already putting the scanners on robot dogs and things. So it's
Oh, we're into the
oh
world
yeah,
of Black Mirror here, aren't we? So
yeah. But the thing is, it's not going to be brought out everywhere. But um, if you think about certain things human beings shouldn't be doing, and that's stuff like the machine control sitting next to a 14-ton digger. And another example is scanning the inside of a nuclear power station that's live. But you do need to see if there's been changes, if there's cracks. So if you can get a robot dog to walk a specific path and with a laser scanner on its back, that's a much safer way of monitoring a nuclear facility than having some guy do it, which is what we do at the moment, you know. And drones with methane detectors, much safer than having a guy with a methane detector walking around. Because what if he finds methane?
Yeah, a live canary in a coal mine, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So look, let's have
So
a deeper dive into that, Matt, because I think we could probably talk about this for a good hour non-stop. So
yeah, I think we probably could. Yeah.
okay, listen, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciated it. Let's book in that call. Let's book in the next one, and then we're going to catch up then. Sound good?
Okay, sounds good.
Brilliant. Thanks,
All
Matt.
right. Thank.
All the best.